Good information is delivered on Wikisana. Are you also like Wikisana?
Hello, nice to see you again. I warmly welcome you to our format NaturalMEDICINE. And today we are focusing on the topic of ligaments, especially when ligaments are injured. What now? I have an exciting guest for this today. Stay with me, we'll start the conversation right away. Hello dear Karl, I greet you. Karl Müller, motion scientist. And you are dealing with the feet, or with the motion apparatus as a whole. And we have already noticed in several programs that our health of the motion apparatus begins in the feet. And now there are many possibilities how we can injure the ligaments. And now we want to clarify where we have ligaments and what kind of injuries there are.
Where do we have ligaments? Good question. Everywhere. There are the ligaments, muscles, tendons, and of course the bones. So the skeletal apparatus and the ligaments muscle tendon apparatus and the whole thing together makes up the motion apparatus. We need that to move. And we have ligaments, for example, here too. We have ligaments all over the joints because the ligaments are responsible for it. So I'll tell you what many think. Many doctors also think what the ligaments are responsible for. They also say that the ligaments have to support the joints. I don't see it that way. I see it partly that way. The ligaments don't have the strength, they are not so strong that a knee joint. For example, you have a lot of ligaments around the knee joint and also in the knee joint. There is a front and a back cruciate ligament. And there are inner ligaments, outer ligaments, which are partly connected to the meniscus. And they are not so strong that they would withstand these huge loads, for example in skiing, in football. That's not true at all. Or it's mostly not true. The ligaments are there to transmit signals. Because in the whole motion apparatus, even if I do it like this, it is partly controlled in the brain, partly it comes out of the back. Not every movement is controlled by the brain, but reflexes.
Kommt das aus dem Rücken heraus, zwischen irgendwo, nicht jede Bewegung wird vom Hirn gesteuert, sondern Reflexe kommen aus sehr nahen.
That would be far too far. That is also unconscious. That happens unconsciously. And when I ski and in 1/1000th of a second such fast movements come and the muscles are not tense, the ligaments would tear constantly.
Und die Muskeln nicht angespannt wären, da würden die Bänder ständig reißen.
They would be constantly overloaded. The ligaments have the task, an essential task, to transmit the signals to tell the muscles what they have to do.
Den Muskeln zu sagen, was sie machen müssen.
And the forces that act on the ligaments, they do react due to forces.
Reagieren schon aufgrund von Kräften.
So the force has a lot to do with the function of the band. But not the main force, but it's like when a weak current controls a strong current. So the electronics, when it decides that a large current has to be controlled, these are small forces that control the large forces of the musculature. And that's why medicine is very often suboptimal.
Medizinisch sehr oft eben suboptimal reagiert.
In my eyes, medical measures are not always optimal. As a motion scientist, I would react very differently to ligaments than orthopedists recommend.
Anders reagieren, als das eben Orthopäde empfehlen.
Did I say something completely different from what you asked?
Das, was du gefragt hast.
No, no. We talked about where we have ligaments and what their task is. That's what we talked about. If you say that classical medicine or orthopedists react wrongly or treat wrongly in most cases, there are better options, let's put it that way.
Suboptimal, that's what I said.
Right, suboptimal. What options are there from your point of view or from your experience?
Also,
Most ligament problems are in the knee.
hat man im Knie.
Outer ligaments, inner ligaments, anterior cruciate ligament, posterior cruciate ligament, especially anterior crossband.
Und
I don't have the statistics with me, but it's mainly the ankle ligaments.
die Sprunggelenkbänder.
That's where most problems are.
Sind die meisten Probleme.
Ligament problems on the movement apparatus, ankle ligaments. They tear or stretch because the foot bends outwards due to a surprise effect.
Oder überdehnen, weil der Fuß durch einen Überraschungseffekt nach außen knickt.
That can be a door threshold or an unevenness, because you have flat, hard ground everywhere. You just walk so unconsciously and then it can be tripping that the ligaments are stretched.
Einfach so unbewusst und dann kann es ein Stolpern sein, dass dann die Bänder überdehnt werden.
I missed my stairs once. I didn't tear my ligaments, but I missed one step and then.
Then it happens quickly,
Passiert's dann schnell.
and then the so-called subliminal trauma arises.
Das sogenannte Supinationstrauma.
Oh God.
Das ist
Almost all people have it, because a trauma is something that happens again because it happened once.
Etwas, was wieder passiert, weil es einmal passiert ist.
And if you have stepped over the foot as Saints say, then you step over it again and again.
Dann übertritt man immer wieder. Und
And that's because the ligaments are stretched.
weil die Bänder überdehnt sind. Heutzutage
Nowadays the ankle ligaments are no longer operated.
Sprunggelenksbänder nicht mehr.
It is no longer so common, thank God, that they are operated. Anterior cruciate ligament, sadly, yes. But what you do suboptimally with the ankle ligaments, and you see, if you walk for half an hour on the street in a city, you see 2 or 3 times people walking on sticks padded with such thick shoes.
Sieht man 2 oder 3 Mal Leute an Stöcken gehen, mit so dicken Schuhen eingepolstert.
They wear them for 4 weeks.
Wochenlang tragen die dann.
If you have stepped over your foot and the foot swells, you wear such stiff shoes, which you have to wear at the beginning, even at night.
So steife Schuhe, die man am Anfang auch in der Nacht tragen muss. Und
And
mit
with
der Zeit
time you can
darf
take them
man
off
sie
at
dann,
night,
je nachdem,
depending on
wie
how
schwer
bad
es
it is.
darf man die dann mit der Zeit ausziehen.
It's like a
Es ist
plaster,
so wie
a semi-permanent plaster,
Gips, der nicht ganz so einen halbpermanenten Gips.
and at the bottom it has a bit to roll off.
Zum Abrollen ein bisschen, dann
Then the
sagt der
doctor says,
Arzt, ja,
at the beginning you are allowed put
man soll
10% on it.
belassen.
Is it called orthosis?
Yes, and there are different types of orthosis.
Von Orthesen.
There are also those where you can only
Wo
put
man
sticks
nur
in high
hohe
shoes.
Schuhe, so Stäbe reinstecken
This is
kann.
the weakest form.
Das ist die schwächste Form,
But
aber
even
auch
there,
dort
people
tragen die
usually
Leute
wear
meistens
sticks.
noch Stöcke. Und
And then a
es
movement pattern is formed
ergibt
within
sich
these
dann
4
ein
weeks.
Bewegungsmuster innerhalb von diesen 4 Wochen. Oft,
Often you limp for 2 months
hilft
after.
man dann noch 2 Monate lang. Dann
Then such a posture is
entsteht so eine
created, which you can
Schonhaltung,
hardly get out of your
die man
brain and out of your
kaum
own
aus dem
pattern.
Hirn und aus dem eigenen Gangmuster rausbringt mehr.
And what's really bad
Was
is that
ganz
during this
schlimm
time,
ist,
when you
während
put your
dieser
ankle so
Zeit, wo
still,
man
the fascias stick
dieses
together,
Fußgelenk
very
so
similar to when you wear
stilllegt,
plaster.
verkleben die Faszien, ganz ähnlich wie wenn man einen Gips trägt und dann,
Do you recognize that?
kennst du das?
Yes, from current experience. In November, I had a fractured wrist. I had surgery and had plaster. And now I realize that I have to use my hand again. But I'm not used to it anymore. People get used to stupid things very quickly. And now I really have to use a lot of consciousness so that I can get my hand moving again.
That's exactly how it is with the
So ist
foot.
es beim Fuß.
Yes,
Und
If you can walk reasonably, then you stop the therapy.
Dann hört man auf mit der Therapie.
There are fascia therapies that are very, very useful to release the adhesions.
Wenn man das macht, die Verklebungen wieder zu lösen, das
That's
ist dann
very
auch
painful.
sehr schmerzhaft.
Yes, I also have physiotherapy.
It hurts, doesn't it?
Es muss
The fascia adhesions only loosen when it hurts.
lösen sich nur, wenn's schmerzt.
I also notice afterwards how well it works.
Genau,
Exactly.
Schmerz, aber du
At the moment it hurts, but you regain mobility.
Und das Suboptimale ist, dass man diese Dinger so
It can
lange
happen that if you don't know exactly how to deal with the body, that you can't move fully from the beginning.
weiß, wie mit dem Körper umgehen, dass man nicht von Anfang an gleich wieder voll belasten, voll bewegen kann. Man
You could.
könnte in den fast
Even if you have torn ligaments and walk very consciously, very carefully, you could walk without orthosis from the beginning.
Könnte man ohne Orthese von Anfang an gehen.
I don't advise that to everyone.
Nicht allen,
But what I advise is to stop as soon as possible, to move as quickly as possible.
möglichst schnell zu bewegen.
In the night, taking it off too quickly is hard, because the heavy blanket already hurts.
Das tut dann schon weh.
If you turn around, it hurts.
Weh.
But if you start walking very early with moving, then you wouldn't have orthosis for 4 weeks and then you wouldn't need therapy for 4 weeks, but you could fully load the problem again in 2 weeks.
Würde das nicht 4 Wochen Orthese plus dann noch 4 Wochen Therapie brauchen, sondern man könnte das Problem, man könnte in 2 Wochen schon wieder voll belasten.
Okay.
Da geht man viel zu.
When I look at it, I have often seen people with such orthosis, also in the near environment, employees, and so on.
Orthesen, auch im näheren Umfeld, Mitarbeiter und so weiter. Und
And every time I said, please take it off, I take the responsibility.
Okay.
And every time they loaded it, they had no pain. They put the sticks away and were able to walk again, only very slowly, not running of course, but it's actually about the movement of the ankle.
und keine Schmerzen gehabt, haben die Stöcke weggelegt und konnten wieder gehen. Nur ganz langsam, also schnell gehen geht dann noch nicht. Es geht eigentlich um die Bewegung des Fußgelenks.
You have to try to keep the ankle in the right angle through your own
Eigenen
muscles.
Muskeln versuchen, das Fußgelenk im rechten Winkel zu halten.
So you can't let go of the tension of the calf and shin muscles.
Die Anspannung der Waden- und der Schienbeinmuskulatur, man darf die nicht loslassen. Man
You
muss
have to
den
keep your
Fuß
foot in the right
halten
angle
im
and then
rechten
walk very
Winkel.
slowly, always
Dann
with the
so
right angle.
ganz langsam gehen, immer mit dem rechten Winkel.
Okay.
And if you do that for 1, 2, 3 minutes, then you realize that after a few minutes you can move the ankle very easily.
Nach ein paar Minuten ganz leicht das Fußgelenk bewegen. Dann muss man das halt ein paar Mal üben pro Tag.
Every day,
immer wieder.
again and again.
Und so wird
And so
man
in a
ein paar
few days you are
Minuten
very often
sehr
pain-free and
oft
can load
frei
fully.
und kann wieder voll belasten. Die
This restraint, or what the doctor says, you can only load 30%, 40%, 50%, that's just because you may not be properly loaded and then it's really a problem.
Nur darum,
Then it can tear again.
weil man vielleicht nicht richtig belastet und dann ist schon wirklich ein Problem. Dann kann es wieder reißen oder
This whole
diese
situation,
ganze
which sticks very
Situation
quickly,
sehr schnell
then tear at the
verklebt,
fascia
dann
again
an den
and be very
Faszien
painful.
reißen und sehr schmerzhaft sein.
But if you move
Aber wenn man
properly,
sich
if you keep the
richtig
ankle in the
bewegt,
right angle, then
wenn
you
man
can
das
load
Gelenk
very
im
quickly.
rechten Winkel hält, dann kann man sehr schnell voll belasten.
I find it difficult to estimate anyway how I overload my foot now, only 20% or 30%.
30%.
Das geht ja
Keine
gar
Ahnung.
nicht, das geht ja gar nicht. Ja, ja.
Okay,
Ja.
okay. Also kann man sich das dann so
I can
vorstellen,
imagine
dass
that the
der
body,
Körper
the
oder
ligaments,
die Bänder,
the
die
muscles,
Muskulatur,
the
die
tendons,
Sehnen, also
everything
alles,
that
was
is
da
in the
zusammengespannt
interplay,
ist, dann
then undergoes regeneration
Regenerationsprozess im
processes
Prinzip
by using
durch
movement
das, dass
again.
ich Bewegung wieder
Yes, it takes the movement of all the
Es
structures
braucht ja
so
die
that inflamed
Bewegung
water
der
arises.
ganzen Strukturen,
Ja.
damit das Brandwasser, das entsteht, damit
Inflamed water.
Brandwasser, ja,
Inflamed
es
water,
entsteht
yes,
ja
it arises
durch
due to
Entzündungen,
inflammation.
es gibt
The body builds
Entzündungen,
protection and this
der
protection
Körper baut
consists of
auch einen
fluidity, of
Schutz
course. It
sich
also
herum und
solidifies
dieser
blood that
Schutz
has run inside, which
besteht
then becomes
aus
partly blue and that has to be
Flüssigkeit,
rinsed
das
out.
verfestigt natürlich auch Blut, das geronnen ist.
Aha.
Innen, das wird ja dann teilweise blau und das muss rausgespült werden.
All this has to be rinsed out and if you load
rausgespült
properly,
werden und wenn
optimally
man
and move very, very
ohne
lightly, then it recovers
Fehlbelastung
much, much
richtig
faster.
optimal belastet und ganz, ganz leicht bewegt, dann erholt sich das viel schneller.
Yes, many have certainly already experienced that in ball sports or playing or even jogging, where the band has been overstretched for a short time. While doing sports, you notice that there is a quick stabbing pain, but you can go on, you can even continue to play.
Kurz übertreten ist, während man Sport gemacht hat, merkt man zwar, gibt es so einen schnellen Stich,
Ja.
aber man kann weitergehen.
Ja.
Man kann sogar weiterspielen. Wenn ich dann aber geduscht habe,
But
nach
after
dem
showering
Duschen
and sitting
und
down for a certain
gegessen
time,
bin eine
then the
gewisse
real
Zeit
pain
lang,
comes.
kann ich nicht mehr, dann kommt der richtige Schmerz.
There was a
Also
stab,
hat zwar
but
einen
nothing
Stich
happened
gegeben,
afterwards. You kept
nachher ist
moving.
nichts mehr passiert, man hat weiter bewegt.
As long as the whole
Solange die
situation is
ganze
warm, you
Situation
can keep
warm
moving.
ist,
Ja.
kann man weiter bewegen.
Ja.
Only when
Nur
it is
wenn sie
cold,
dann mal
then it is no longer
erkaltet
possible.
ist, dann geht's nicht mehr.
And then you
dann
put ice on it.
tut man Eis drauf,
This is a
das
good
eine
measure,
gute
ice.
Maßnahme, Eis.
But you should keep moving.
Aber man sollte weiter bewegen.
Really burden
Richtig
yourself.
belasten,
Don't
nicht
just keep
einfach
moving.
weiter bewegen. Das
This is catastrophic.
katastrophal, sondern
You have to know how to
man
burden
muss
yourself.
wissen, wie belasten.
You can
Man
try
kann
it
es selber
yourself.
ausprobieren, man kann es
You
selber
can try to
versuchen,
stand on
auf
your
dem
feet,
Fuß zu
both
stehen,
feet burdened at the
beide
same
Füße
time.
gleich belasten,
To
auf
stand
dem
on
Fuß
your
zu
feet
stehen
and
und
see
schauen,
in which angle you can
welchen
burden
Winkel
yourself.
kann ich belasten.
You
Man
can
kann
even
sogar
stand on
auf
this
dieses
one leg.
eine Bein stehen.
Okay.
Also das jetzt gerade verletzt ist, kann
So that
ich
it is just injured
draufstehen,
now,
wenn
I
ich
can
im
stand on it,
richtigen
if I
Winkel,
stand in the right
der
angle,
vollen
in the full tension
Anspannung
of
der
the
ganzen
entire leg
Beinachse
axis.
stehe, geht das.
Okay.
Die ganze Vorsichtsmaßnahme
The
mit
whole
diesen
precautionary
Orthosen
measure with
ist
these
nur,
orthoses is
weil
only
man
because you are not
nicht
aware, because you
bewusst,
don't know
weil
how to
man
burden
gar nicht
yourself.
weiß, wie man es
belastet
belasten muss.
dann.
Ja,
Because you are at
falsch
risk of
belastet.
burdening yourself wrongly. Okay, I understand. What other solutions do you have as a motion scientist in such cases? If ligaments are torn, partially torn, or overstretched?
Overstretched, torn, partially torn. However, torn is rather rare when you twist your ankle. Most of the time it is overstretched, and even overstretched can already cause an incredibly large swellings. Partially torn, that gives more swelling. And torn, you really have to be very careful. But also that works.
Does something like that actually grow back together?
Yes, it grows back together. Yes, the bands grow back together.
The body is fantastic. I keep coming back to that conclusion.
I don't want to open a new topic, but also meniscus grows again. So also the cartilage grows again.
Yes, we already had an interview about that. I can remember that opened a whole new world for me.
I have my own experience in the last few months. I was in the tube and now everything is back together. Everything, the cartilage can also be rebuilt. But that's another topic. The body is so brilliant, it wants to heal itself. You just have to give the right environment. You have to know what you have to do. And as long as you can keep still for a short time, especially if you don't really know how to deal with it, it can be a method. So for example, a cast is necessary for bone fractures. Although in the past there was no cast. That's why the fascia are glued. Because the gluing of the fascia is the body's own replacement for the cast. Yes, of course. What else would the gluing of the fascia make sense for? They only glue together when injured, like with wild animals. They lie in peace on the ground or limp. The dogs swing their limping legs and at some point they go. They didn't have a cast in nature. But the gluing of the fascia, and then over time they can move again, begin to move again. And then these fascia glue come off again. This is an internal body's own cast that builds up during the injury and then comes off again during the movement. And that would be exactly the same.
I keep learning. Excellent.
Yes, me too.
You developed shoes many years ago. Are they also a solution or do they contribute to such injuries?
Yes and no. You have to be very careful.
Schon sehr vorsichtig sein.
You have to know exactly what to do with these shoes.
Was man tun muss mit diesen Schuhen.
What would be suitable for an acute injury?
vielleicht die jetzt bei einer akuten Verletzung geeignet wäre.
If you get good support, the shoes are a solution.
Sind die Schuhe eine Lösung? Ja.
Only if the foot is swollen, then it may have to be a shoe that is very wide.
Sehr weit ist. Das
We
gibt
also
aber
have that.
auch, die sehr
They are
elastisch
very
sind,
elastic. If the swelling is a bit
die
receding.
Schädigung ein bisschen zurück ist,
Under instruction,
unter
yes, but
Anleitung
because.
ja, aber eben, weil der vielleicht
Maybe we could look at a
ein
few
paar
pictures
Bilder
here.
hier anschauen.
Sure.
We see the movement of the
Wir
feet.
haben wir sehen da die Bewegung der Füße und wenn man von der Seite schaut,
If you look from the side, in this movement the angle of the ankle is almost right
der
angled.
Winkel des Fußgelenks fast rechtwinklig.
ja.
Also man stößt nicht da groß ab, sondern
You don't push off big, but the lower leg muscles, shin, calf, keep the foot in a right angle.
den Fuß in einem rechten Winkel.
If you fit into the shoe because of the swelling or you try a model in a shop that is very wide, or a sandal, we have very wide ones with very long straps. If you try it like this and go very consciously, very slowly, then this shoe is a solution.
Das so ausprobiert und so geht und ganz bewusst, ganz langsam geht, dann ist sogar dieser Schuh eine Lösung.
What is another solution, which is not so fast as with the shoes? You can get painlessly in most cases in a week.
Man das in den meisten Fällen in einer Woche schmerzfrei hin.
Wow.
Wow.
Und
If you want to approach the whole thing a little more carefully, slower, we also make mats, small, thin mats, medium, thick mats.
Kleine, dünne Matten, mittlere, dicke Matten.
With the thin mat, you can also try it at home. There are also these yoga mats, then 2, 3 yoga mats on top of each other, then you stand on the yoga mats and try.
Yogamatten
Ja.
aufeinander, dann steht man auf den Yogamatten und versucht dann auch.
If you stand with both feet, you only have 50% load on one leg anyway.
50% Belastung
Na klar.
auf einem Bein, oder? Weil man Beine
Ja.
und dann muss man.
And then you can try to load both legs and then roll very easily from front to back and hold the right angle as much as possible.
Vorn nach hinten und möglichst den rechten Winkel halten.
And if you do that for 10 minutes until the ankle gets a little warmer, then it's just as warm again, or a bit similar to when you get this injury in the middle of sport.
Oder ein bisschen ähnlich wie wenn man mitten im Sport diese Verletzung holt. Wenn das
When it gets
wärmer
warmer,
wird,
you notice that you can move it a little
man das
bigger.
ein bisschen größer bewegen
Ja,
kann.
stimmt, ja.
If you do it several times a day, you notice that you can load much faster.
Sehr schnell, viel schneller wieder belasten kann.
And this load also prevents the large-scale adhesion of the muscles.
Das großflächige Verkleben der Muskulatur.
So you can say you activate the regeneration ability or strengthen the regeneration ability of the body and your own means,
Des
so to
Körpers,
speak.
also die eigenen Mittel quasi, wenn
Es
man das
ist
so.
gar nichts
There is nothing to add,
dagegen.
that's exactly
Genauso
how it
es.
is.
Weil wenn man
Because if you
hinten
limp with
Stöcken
sticks, it goes up to the shoulder. This can cause shoulder overload. This can cause back problems.
Der Schultern geben, das kann Rückenprobleme geben. Und
And
vor
above
allem
all, here in the foot area, the calf muscle shortens so much.
Die Wadenmuskulatur verkürzt sich
Ja.
und da kann man halt viel einfacher und viel schneller wieder
And you can just go back to normal everyday movements much easier and much faster.
in die normale Alltagsbewegung übergehen.
So, the mats alone is of course a great idea.
Den Matten ist natürlich eine super gute Idee.
I don't understand anyway that you don't equip treadmills with mats like that, right? From today's point of view,
Ja, also wir machen ja das.
We do that, we also produce treadmills.
oh, that's exciting.
If you type in carbon treadmill on the internet, you'll find it.
Das ist ja klasse.
That's great.
Auch solche
Also those without
Treadmills,
motors,
also,
made of wood, and where you have this floor.
und wo man dann eben diesen Boden
This
hat.
natural floor imitated, because we don't have that in our everyday life. And that can also be done for someone who,
I wouldn't go on the treadmill with ankle injuries, if you're not used to going on the treadmill, because you have to go very precisely. And you can't have incorrect loading. That would be more preventive or later, if the problem is more or less solved.
you said earlier that if you have good company, you can start earlier with the right load. Who is a good companion?
In most of our shops you get quite good company and you can try them out.
in den meisten Jobs recht gute Begleitung und man kann sie ausprobieren.
And if you now take into account what I said and try it out yourself, still under the supervision of our shop staff, who are also trained therapeutically, then you can see how it works.
Auch ausgebildet sind, dann kann man ja schauen, wie es geht.
And most people will be very surprised how it works.
Okay.
How good and easy it is. How quickly you can get out of this shell, directly into the opposite. The shell is a plaster,
Ja.
and we do the opposite. We move a lot. Most people will be surprised how fast and easy it works.
Ich spreche jetzt auch aus
I'm not
Erfahrung,
talking from my own experience, not with feet, but with my wrist fracture. The doctor also told me after the plaster that I can still wear my wrist orthosis for 2 weeks, if necessary. I didn't use it from the first day because it was much more pleasant to go back into motion.
If you have an incorrect loading, it can hurt, it can give a stab, but the world doesn't go down. It's better than to wear this orthosis for 2 weeks.
Right.
Genau. Also deswegen.
That's why it's absolutely worth striving for.
Because the joint won't break anymore.
Das war das, der Arzt hat mir
The doctor told me that.
Not the joint, the bone won't break.
Sie können eigentlich nichts mehr kaputt
The doctor
machen.
told me that I can't break anything anymore. That's how I got my license to do so in my head.
That's right.
Genau, richtig. Ich
Intuitively well done.
nicht mehr, auch wenn er sagt,
I just didn't like it anymore. Even when he said, when I'm out, I can still put it on, when I'm a little scared. No, I realized that doesn't make it better. Maybe that's a good suggestion for the viewer who is perhaps just affected by a ligament injury. To follow up or not to lock yourself in the orthosis for so long.
I would try it. You can't lose a lot, you can't break a lot. But you have to be very, very careful and conscious.
And with good company, as you say.
And with good company, exactly.
Where do you say again? Can you find you?
On the internet, under Kybun. KYBUN. And then you can find shops and everything.
And there is probably a support where you can ask questions.
You can find everything. You can find so much information, videos and instructions, everything. Kybun or Joya. Joya.
Okay, fantastic, wonderful. Thank you very much for being here. And thank you very much for your developments and your research around the motion device. And that you have already created wonderful solutions for many people, so that they can get well again quickly.
It's not entirely unselfish, because I had so many problems all over my body. I actually started it because of me. And then it was talked around the world.
That's how most people do it. The good ideas and functioning ideas develop such things.
Because you were involved yourself. Exactly, right.
Wonderful. But with you everything is fine again.
Yes, you always find things again and again. Now there was the meniscus. And now at the moment, I think the body is such that you always go for the biggest. You go for where you have the greatest pain. And then you don't notice all the others. If that's gone again, something comes. Now I notice that I still have potential here in the neck movement.
Potential is good.
Exactly.
I thank you very much and look forward to the next conversations, what we can learn again from our interviews. And I say goodbye to you and also say goodbye to you, dear viewers. I hope you learned something again, like me. And that's what we're about now. To give you knowledge about our health and to suggest solutions to you. And in this sense, stay attentive, stay informed, stay vigilant and above all, stay loving to yourself. See you next time. Goodbye.